West City Council meeting for September 26, 2017. I now call this meeting to order. Again, welcome and thank you for being here. I'd like to call Von Sullivan to the podium to offer our invocation. We do have in attendance tonight two ROTC cadets from Carl Albert High School. Cadet Avery Stout, he is the cadet group commander, and Cadet Garrett Davis is, I said she. Yes, ma'am. But thank you. And Cadet Garrett Davis, who's the cadet commander of Bravo Squadron. Cadet Stout is planning to attend the United States Naval Academy, and Garrett is planning to study engineering at the University of Oklahoma. And thank you for being here. Okay, Vaughn, let's go ahead. Please stand.
I'd ask you to bow with me, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, Creator, our Sustainer, we give you glory and honor for this day and this occasion. Thank you for the moisture that you blessed us with today, Lord. Father, I thank you for this city that we enjoy and very dedicated staff. And Father, I just thank you for these men and women who volunteer to oversee the policy and procedures of this city. Thank you for their willingness to sacrifice and their families as well. Bless them tonight, Lord, with discernment and wisdom. Father, I pray that that discernment and wisdom be in line with your will and with the city as a whole, that personal agendas are set aside. Father, I thank you so much for this great land we live in, the freedoms we enjoy, and those who are willing to sacrifice and defend them at this very hour all over the world. Give them peace and comfort and protection. Be with their families while they're away. Father, provide our country with healing, and Father, provide us with a better unity of spirit. We thank you for the unity and the healing from sin that your Son provided with his sacrifice on the cross. Lord, we thank you for being willing to have a plan to redeem us. Jesus, thank you for being willing. We ask all this in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please join us in the pledge? Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Thank you very much. Are there any community announcements on the horseshoe?
I have several that I'd like to make. I just want to remind everyone that in a couple days, this Thursday at 6:30, we'll have our second town hall meeting to present information and facts regarding the proposal for a sales tax increase to be voted on October 10th. We also are happy to announce that a groundbreaking has been scheduled for the Warren Theater project, which will take place next Thursday on the site at 10 a.m. We also, Friday, they are. Last time I saw it was Thursday, but I shouldn't be out of town too, I know. So October 30th, this Saturday, we will have Mid-America Street Fest at Charles J. Johnson Park in Town Center Plaza. October 21st, we'll have Cruise for Coffee taking place at Santa Fe restaurant on Southeast 29th Street. And on October 28th, we will have Trick or Treat City out at Regional Park. And we also have, I guess, be careful on 15th Street this Friday, because we have the Midwest City Homecoming Parade starting at 1:30. And I guess the Bombers are playing Deer Creek. That's all I have, Mayor.
Go ahead.
There is a wellness walk, Let's Get Midwest City Moving, that the city is one of the sponsors for. You can go online and register today. There is limited space. It's October 15th. There is a wellness expo at 1 p.m. and the race starts at 3 p.m. It's going to be on the 15th Street side of Regional Park. So if you're interested, it's free to sign up. Please come out and join us.
And also, Carl Albert has their homecoming this week, and they'll be playing Guyman. Their homecoming parade will be Thursday. So the area of Douglas to 15th back to the high school, you might want to avoid about 1:30.
And we also, not we, but I do believe that the Rose State College Foundation is having their annual golf tournament fundraiser this Friday at John Conrad Golf Course. So if you're looking for something to do on Friday afternoon, you might go sign up.
Are there any more announcements? Hearing none, we'll move into the consent agenda of our program this evening. Consent agenda, these items are placed on the consent agenda so the council members by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any one item does not meet with the approval of council members or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, it will be removed and heard in regular order.
I ask that number 9 and number 10 be pulled.
Move to approve with the exception of the pulling of items numbers 9 and 10.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? The motion is to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items 9 and 10 being pulled for further discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. First discussion item.
Items number 9 and number 10 are discussion consideration of accepting the Midwest City Baseball Association 2016-17 financial statement. And then the second item is accepting the Oklahoma Spartans Youth Organization 2016-2017 financial statement.
I'd make a motion that we table it for 30 days and give our finance person the opportunity to go through. Correct, Sean? Is that?
If we table it, though, it has to go back exactly like it is. If we take no action on it, it can come back with changes. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if we take no action, it comes
Okay.
back to us at a later date, and any changes can be made.
Okay.
So the motion would be that we take no action and allow our finance department to overview the
Correct.
reports as submitted, then come back in 30 days with the report.
If they're
Is that
able to
correct?
if they're able to complete it in that time.
We'll
Correct.
bring it back as quickly as we can.
Okay, thanks.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item, on these two items? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next discussion item.
This is CA 76, discussion consideration of appeal by Bill Warren to allow to the allowable size for construction signs in a commercial zoning district for property located at 5901 Southeast 15th Street.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item?
I'd like to explain my vote. I think this is the most important thing that we've got going in the city at some time, but I've been very consistent about not liking variances, and I voted against a variance for a church not too long ago, and I was the only person up here that did, which I'm fine with, and I'm gonna probably be the only person here. I am not voting no because there's some kind of weird humming. I'm not voting no because I'm against this. I'm just voting no because I'm being very consistent with how I vote on variances.
That being said, any further discussion on this item?
Well, I'd just like to say that this particular sign would add some attraction to what we have upcoming, and I think it's very important that the sign does go forward. So I motion that we
Any further discussion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me,
Show, let the record show two nays. Abstentions. Chair shows that the motion carries. Next item.
This is discussion consideration of adopting and passing a resolution in support of the Middale School District bond election on October 10th, 2017. This item is on the agenda, is in support of the school district's bond election, which will also be held on October 10th. Staff recommends approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Motion carries. Next item.
This is PC 1915, public hearing with discussion consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from R6 single-family residential to C3 community commercial, and a resolution to amend a portion of the comprehensive plan from low-density residential to OR office retail for the property described as Lot 27 of Block 2 of the replat of Atkinson Heights Addition, located at 227 West Fairchild. Mr. Arliss?
Yes, sir. This is just a simple rezoning to C3. The applicant is zoning to join the property to the west, the other lots that they've acquired, and also to the north. The site plan in it is incorrect, but is not tied to the zoning. So the Planning Commission staff and council should just consider this as whether it's appropriate for C3 zoning, which the Planning Commission and council, staff and Planning Commission do agree that it is appropriate for C3 zoning.
Mr. Harless, there was a couple here in the audience. They've left, but they lived across the street from this request. And as this process moves through, all the appropriate landscaping and all of that is going to take place as this development moves through the process, correct?
Yes, sir.
We might want to extend a handout to the people that live to the immediate south and north to the east of that proposed development, just to reassure them that all the appropriate steps are being taken.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Is this is a public hearing, Mayor. Is the applicant in the audience? Could you come up and identify yourself, name and address, and anything else you want to add?
Al Saleh, 1809 South Air Depot. We just needed the extra space actually for the last house to be rezoned for the parking. We have a couple of restaurants signed up leases with us already, and we're ready to go. So we just really needed that last house for the parking, and that's what we're gonna do.
Have you had a chance to read the staff report?
Yes.
Any concerns?
No.
Okay. Will this be a Garfield's restaurant?
No. No.
He used to manage the Garfields.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
had the
We
phrase.
used to run the. Yeah, we used to have them as franchise here. Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Does anyone in the audience wish to address this item? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you for being here,
Thank you.
sir.
Appreciate it.
Next item.
This is PC 1916, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of the replat of Lot 1, Block 1 of the Canales East Reno Avenue addition, described as a part of the southeast quarter of Section 36, Township 12 North, Range 2 West, and as shown on the attached map. Mr. Arliss?
Yes, sir. This is a little .38 acre lot that's at the intersection of Main and Charles. The applicant is proposing to split the lot, plat it into 2 lots. The staff report's incorrect. It is, instead of being 7,040 feet in length, it's actually 166 feet in frontage, and then also 100 foot of frontage because it is on a corner. They just proposed to split the lots into 80 feet by 100 and 88 feet by 100. It does meet all the requirements, except that the street and sidewalks are not up to standards, today's standards. It's an existing addition, and in the past, people have requested, and the staff has, the Planning Commission and Council have agreed to waive those standards because it's an existing street and there's not sidewalks to join up with anything. So Planning Commission and staff recommend approval.
Is the applicant in the audience? Sir, do you have anything to add? Have you read the staff report? You want to come forward to the podium, please? You just state your name and address, sir, for the record.
Steve Merriman, 19721 Northeast 60th, or Southeast 60th, New Walla.
Okay, sir. Do you have anything to add to this proposal? Any questions of the staff or council?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions about this proposal? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Sir, thank you for being here. Next item.
PC 1917, public hearing with discussion consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from PUD plan unit development governed by the C3 Community Commercial District to an SPUD simplified plan unit development governed by the RHD High Density Residential District, and a resolution to amend a portion of the comprehensive plan from a commercial to high density residential for the property described as a tract of land lying in the northeast quarter of Section 11, Township 11 North, Range 2 West. Mr. Harless?
Yes, the applicant is Jeff Johnson's with J. Lou Properties. He's applying to rezone and install 44 units on the approximately acre property. The application is actually he would like to install like single or efficiencies in the area. Staff was okay with this proposal as that it meets a lot of the surrounding uses. The applicant is requesting a few waivers that are unusual for this type of development. One of them is the 25-yard setback, and then also the 7-foot setback. And in this case, we were okay with that because the parking is in the middle, as you can see on the site plan. But also that the surrounding uses to the west, there's a floodplain. So it wouldn't be bothering anything on that side of the property, but also to the south, which is the storage facility. The applicant is also requesting a variance in the parking, seeing that they are proposed efficiencies. Instead of the 1.5 per unit, he's requesting 1.25 per unit, and also that he will have cross access or cross parking agreements with the property to the north, and that will be a requirement as this development goes forward with the platting. Planning Commission and staff have recommended approval on this. Yes, glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Johnson, you have anything to add or any questions of staff? I assume you read the staff report.
Yes, I have. I don't have any requests. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, it's 44 units in that? I mean,
Yes, sir.
how do you fit them in there?
All one bedroom. They're all 650 to 700 square feet.
What was the size? What were their sizes?
650 to 700.
Okay.
And I think it's an interesting concept. So originally it was a PUD
it was, originally when I did the PUD on that property, it's almost 15 acres, and it was 100% pretty much all office. And kind of as time has went along, as I've been developing that, I've noticed that I believe that some diversity in that development would be beneficial to everybody in the development. It was made to be a walkable office, lunch, you know, that type of neighborhood for professionals. But 15 acres of office space in our community is a lot. So I am proposing some diversity, and we plan to do some other retail in there as well, between the restaurants, to add some other restaurants as well.
How wide are the streets, Billy, that lead back into this?
I think they're 26.
Yeah, they're a standard residential width, 26 feet.
With minimal parking, and they have a lot of gas, you know, a lot of the areas downtown I've noticed, everybody's parking on both sides of the streets, both directions, and it's very tight to even get a pickup through, which I don't know if this would lend itself to that possible problem, but I'd like the look of it. I'd just like to, you know, we might have a chance to look at the overall plan a little more.
That was thought through, in that 1.5 will more than meet the needs of all single one-bedroom units. And then all the parking to the north is, the entire 15 acres is cross parking, including all the land and parking in front of S&B Burger, Henry Hudson's, which I own as well. All that is cross parking with this 15-acre development, including the urgent care. I got every piece there is cross parking except Rib Crib.
The entrance to this would be off of Midtown, right?
Yeah, there's an entrance off 15th, and then it'll also, you'll be able to get out through the parking lot toward Douglas, which is the original design of the PUD. All I did was take 4 office units, office lots, and make 2 pad sites out of it. That's all I did.
So that so the people in the apartment would actually be able to come out by Zaxby's when we put that light in?
No, they'll be able to come out in front of S&B Burger. Zaxby's down just a little bit. Or they'll be able to go through the neighborhood or the office development to the north and come out on 15th Street. So they have 2 ways in, 2 ways out.
Sorry, guys. In the overview picture, you've got what looks to be a working road where you're probably bringing equipment in and out. Is that where the road's going to go for this, or do you know?
It's just like it is on the plan there. You can see just to the north of S&B.
Billy, can you put this up?
Sure.
Between, basically there's another restaurant pad site, so it would go between that pad site and S&B Burger.
You can't blow that up, can you? All right, that's the beauty of an iPad. So it'll go between Rib Crib and S&B somewhere around
Yes,
there.
and S&B gave me that access in there, and all cross parking with all of their parking as well. The idea is to, that development kind of took a turn that I didn't really see when I did it. It's turned out to be a medical complex. Every tenant in there but one is medical. So I see it as a place for nurses, assistants, any type of people like that. They could work there, live there. They can walk to a bank, a restaurant. They don't even need a car. They could sit right there. The trail system will eventually come right behind this, which I see as a huge benefit. Easy access for bikes and running, get to the park. As long as that trail system holds true to what we've done. I gave easements for all that. So it's the idea, it's work, live, play. I mean, is the idea.
Well, I just want to say that in that medical complex off of 15th, my daughter's dermatologist is one of the first ones that opened there from Saints Dermatology. I think that's a really impressive little development there, so I compliment you. That being said, I would move to approve this request. Anybody?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's Abstentions. Mr. Johnson, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Next item.
PC 1918, public hearing with discussion consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from I-1 moderate industrial to C3 community commercial for the property described as a part of lots 41 and 42 of the Aviation Acre subdivision located at 5600 Tinker Diagonal. Mr. Harless?
This is a half-acre development where the old auto house used to be. There on Sooner Road. The owner's David Stanley, the applicant's Dixon Greenwood. The proposed use is a Verizon. This piece of property went to the Board of Adjustments. Let's see if I can pull it up here. There it is. If you can see the property there, area of request, and the light yellow to the south is the APZ2, which is the accident potential zone for the runway at Tinker. And it went to the Board of Adjustment to make sure that that all the hurdles were cleared to make sure this property could be developed. The Board of Adjustment granted that adjustment, and so Planning Commission went ahead and recommended approval, and staff have recommended approval. The base did give their permission, or didn't have objection, I guess is a better way to put it, as to the property being developed for Verizon. The only other issue that's that hinders the property is that it's in some floodplain, has some floodplain issues tied to it, and they've been working with the engineering to resolve that issue. Staff recommends approval.
Is the applicant present? Yes. Yes, sir. Could you come forward and state your name and address, please?
Dixon Greenwood, 2112 Woodmere Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have any, we assume that you've read the staff report. Do you have any questions of the council or the staff?
No, it all looked good to me.
Any discussion from the Horseshoe?
I got one question. Now, if I remember right, was this the site where we did the CIP grant to help the sewer?
Yes, sir.
And that was, at one time, they was looking at a restaurant location there, right?
No, it's always been this.
Okay.
To the best of my recollection, Mr. Coleman, is that, unless I'm,
At one time, there was a famous coffee distributor.
that's
on
correct,
the site,
that's correct.
But decided not to expand it.
Well, and if you're worried about sales volume, I think that this store will do more volume and sales tax revenue than that would have done.
I just was curious if it's the same one.
Yes.
Well, on that note,
Second.
the chair would entertain a motion. Any further discussion?
But
Make
if
it
you just
loud.
entertained it, I will do it again. Just make a motion to.
I have a
Second.
motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Hey, and
Sir, thank you
for the
being here.
really would like to see more restaurants. I don't buy a lot of phones. We need some restaurants. Bring some friends.
But when you do buy a phone, it's probably worth a fair number of bidders.
Trust me, I buy a few phones. I still help my kids.
Have a safe trip back to Tennessee, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and I just want to say, now that, this isn't me trying to butter up somebody, your administration, Billy, Patrick, especially Robert and Kelly, are as good as anybody I've ever worked with, and I've got stuff going in 10 different states right now, so, you got a good group.
Thank you, sir. We
Thank you.
appreciate
Yep.
that. Hey. Next item.
Is PC 1919, public hearing with discussion consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from C1 restricted commercial to SPUD simplified plan unit development for the property described as lots 21, 22, 23 of the Bristow addition located at 6208 and 6212 East Reno and 209 Char Lane. Mr. Harless?
The applicant's Josh Atkinson. This is a little under 1 acre development. I'd like to compliment Josh and Kelly for their efforts in bringing this into compliance with our ordinances and setbacks. I know that Josh had to, Mr. Atkinson had to go back to Family Dollar on a number of occasions to be able to meet the parking requirements and circulation requirements that they require. But then also Kelly had to work with them to bring it all into conformance. So the only thing to note on this is the driveway cuts. There will be one out on Reno and one out on Char. Other than that, Planning Commission and staff recommend approval.
Mr. Atkinson, could you come to the podium?
Good evening, Jason Spencer with Craft and Toll here with Josh Atkinson.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Do you have any, I assume y'all have read the staff report. Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Staff or council?
We've read the staff report. Staff recommends approval. It was unanimously recommended for approval by Planning Commission. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the Horseshoe? You're getting off easy tonight.
Guess so.
With any one in the audience have any questions or comments on this particular item? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it.
Next item is PC 1920, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of an ordinance redistricting from R6 single family detached residential and R2F two-family attached residential to a plan unit development governed by the R6 single family detached residential district for the property described as a part of the northeast quarter of Section 1, Township 11 North, Range 1 West, located in the 400 block of South Post Road. Mr. Harless?
Yes, this is a 2.3 acre development for 8 lots. The applicant is David Lloyd, and his representative or the engineer is Derek Jackson. The only thing to really note on this is some things that came up from the Planning Commission meeting. The property owners to the north were very concerned about the existing drainage that goes from north to south through this property. I guess it backs up quite a bit onto their property, and they're concerned that when the new development comes in, that it will flood them out, or that they'll increase the water flow or the flooding. I know Patrick Menifee, the city engineer, has met with Derek and discussed this, but after talking it over with staff and stuff, I think we're going to go ahead and take an extra precaution and get on under contract an additional engineer to help alleviate some of those concerns from the property owners to the north, to take those extra steps and just review it to make sure that we don't have issues as this is built out. But Planning Commission and staff recommend approval on this.
Is the applicant in the audience? Could you state your name and address for us, please, sir?
David Lloyd, 5699 North Coltrane, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73121.
I assume you've read the staff report, and do you have any questions of the staff or any questions of the council?
No, I don't.
Council have any questions of the applicant?
I'd just like to ask David one thing is, how trustworthy is your engineer?
Well, I'm relying on him because you guys had him first. So.
Who is that guy? I was wondering why he didn't step up to the microphone.
The only concern I got, Billy, and you guys have talked about it, is that just to the west of there, we have a serious issue with water. And we just please make sure that we don't, because that's not too far from some of our problems.
Yes, sir, and that's why we're going to go ahead and get someone on board that maybe specializes a little bit more in this area. You know, one thing to add to this, you know, the applicant is actually decreasing density through this area, which will help. So that'll be a big plus in the area for that. But we will
You're right, he's decreasing what's allowed there.
Right.
But it's still putting more on there than what's on there right now.
Correct.
So that's, like I said, my only concern is that, like I said, we've had issues with water just directly west of there, and just don't want to add to that.
Yes, sir. And you'll have a couple of more looks at this, as will engineering, and, but we'll make sure and, make every attempt to get it addressed.
Billy, what is the depth of those lots? And I know that the site that I'm looking at there, the house pads seem like they're covering the entire lot, but that may be a bigger pad site than what he's actually doing.
Yeah, that's the actual pad site envelope they want that they can actually fit in. This drawing is distorted. I'll have to look up to see. I don't know if you can answer that question.
I don't know offhand.
Mr. Jackson, do you know the depth of the lots?
It's 72.5 feet by 90 feet.
Yeah, about 90
You
feet.
get to blow it up on your.
What's the front buildings, is it 15 or 25?
25.
20 foot.
Yeah, and that's what they're requesting. The variance on is from 25 to 20.
I mean, the backyards are gonna be very shallow, and I don't know if the other council members, but it's gonna be a street with just houses on one side. We talked about the spike strip earlier. I don't know where the water and sewer, you know, it would be hard for a developer, unless they put them in, and he's not trying to make it easy for the landowner to the north, I understand that, but the spike strips have been a problem, and depending on where you put your water and sewer line, it could be difficult or impossible for the next property owner to the north, and so we're likely to have a street with houses on one side there for a long time. I know it's not it's not your ideal situation, and I don't think it's our ideal situation to drive down the street from the rest of our life, look at a street with houses on one side of the street. It's just kinda, it's just not the most attractive deal, in my opinion, but it is what it is. I mean, I don't
There's
myself.
green space on the opposite side as an offset is, actually, I think it's pretty cool.
If what now?
There's green space on the opposite side to kind of offset that.
Now, you're still gonna be looking down the street. If you're driving down the street, you're gonna look down the street, and there's gonna be houses on one side and nothing on the other. Basically, maybe I didn't look at it that close, but you're saying a green space on the north side of the street?
That's what's platted. It's a green space, and I assume that's gonna be landscaped and manicured, and I can't say that I wouldn't like that myself.
But basically, that's the spike strip, Mayor. That's called a spike strip, just so the developer, so no one can ever come in and develop the north side of it and use his street that he just put in. I mean, I can show you some other locations, but this, like Billy said earlier, the spike strip's not what the city you really don't want the spike strips. And a buffer area where makes it look like a common area, yeah, it looks nice for a while, but really all it's doing is prohibiting the developer, the landowner to the north to ever have access to the street. And you can look around different places in the city, and again, with having a street with only homes on that one side plus a very shallow rear lot, I don't feel like it's the most attractive. Now, I could be wrong. I mean, it's just my opinion. I'm sorry. I don't think it's the most attractive addition we're gonna be looking. I mean, it's.
There's not that much room for development to the west, or to the north. You got a house, I mean, just sitting right on top of that.
Well, I understand that, Mayor, but if I had a lot down the street that's even narrower than that, then let's try to make that one work. Just because that's the only way I can make it work, don't make it attractive.
Who's gonna maintain the common area once all homes are sold?
There's gonna be an HOA.
Okay.
And we discussed we didn't really call it a spike strip in this circumstance, but we staff and I talked about how this might develop, and originally I had your same concerns, Councilman Moore, and you can see from the slide up on the screen that immediately north is another strip. And so in order for that to really to develop, if a street went down on the edge of the property instead of offset by a few feet, 30 feet or whatever it is at the moment, it still makes it undevelopable or extremely difficult to develop. And that's why staff was okay. We talked about maybe getting the applicant to get with the property owners and see if the street could be put down the property line and share a cost or something like that, and they just really weren't interested in doing that. But normally I would agree with you that we would require the drive to be put down the property line at least, so that the surrounding properties could use it. But in this case, the property for the most part to the north really doesn't gain it. They will not gain a lot from it, a buildable lot. In this case, it would take quite a bit of redevelopment for that to happen.
What size of homes are you looking to build?
They're gonna be 1,800 to 2,200 square feet.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I overlooked the audience.
That's all right. I live at 401 South Post Road.
Yes, sir.
We have 5 acres there and a home on the same side of the street. And water does run through that area quite rapidly, and a great deal of water. And we are very concerned about the water flow, and we don't want the water to be slowed down. And we wonder how that water is going to turn. So I appreciate that you do have another engineer hired, and we're just concerned about the water flow.
Are you the house just north of this?
We are the house to the next of that.
Okay. Okay.
The gentleman lives in behind the other house. He's very concerned. Where his property is at, it absolutely floods all the front of his property on a good rain. Any kind of backup at all, it's probably going to be in his house. And so our concern, he approached us and told us about this meeting, and we thought that we should probably come and talk about it.
Do you have any questions of staff in regards to this?
Sir, I'm sorry, could you state your name and your address?
My
one
name
more
is
time?
Roy Symes, S-Y-M-E-S. My address is 401 South Post Road, and we live on a 5-acre lot to the north.
I'm trying to figure out which house is yours.
We have the long drive. We have the black wrought iron fence across the front of our property.
You said it was 401, right?
We're
Right.
401.
Yes.
He's
It's
lot
the
with
second
all the-
lot
well,
north.
He's the lot with all the pretty trees all, and the
That's
big,
right.
nice house in
That's
the back,
right.
bunch of really nice trees.
There's 2 houses south of us. There's a front
And the
house and
Twidwell
there's a
house
back
is
house.
just south of him, or the old Twidwell house.
I believe we
up there.
actually have a drainage easement that runs through our property. The water can get really wide and crazy running through our property when a big rain happens. And any kind of blockage to the south is really going to slow this water flow down. And we just want to make sure that that water's headed where it needs to go, and nothing's going to slow it down.
Billy,
With this, like I said, that water really concerns me, because we've dealt with it just to the west. And I'm gonna be the one he's calling if the water doesn't do what he's asking. When will we know for sure that something can be done with that water to make sure that their houses don't get flooded? When's the engineer gonna?
I think the design engineer, Derek in this case, will start putting together some calculations on that. Patrick will start, our engineer will start reviewing those. And the reason that this is important, that they're downsizing, is, you know, we want to encourage less development in a situation like this. The property owner has a right to develop to a certain density, and in this case, they're downsizing the density in this, and which is a good thing. So they'll do some proposals. Patrick will review them, and we'll bring somebody. We'll have somebody on retainer as to evaluate that and work through these issues to try to bring everybody's comfort level to a point that they can move forward.
So, will we see, this is new to me, so let me get through this. Will we see this again before it's final
Yes,
approval?
sir. Yes, sir.
Because to be honest with you, dealing with the water issues we have over there, I'd be very, very, very hard pressed to say, go ahead with it, because when you get somebody coming up here saying somebody's house is going to get flooded, you know, we're cleaning up some earlier decisions that were made, and I don't want to have somebody else that takes my spot in a couple of years to have to clean up something for me.
Right.
So that's concern. The water really concerns me.
And this is the first time that I know of that we've gone outside to get engineering to find somebody that maybe can, to double check and make sure that we're not getting into a situation that we all regret. I don't know if there's, Mr. Henson, I don't know if you've got any suggestions on that, or
No,
how
I
we
think,
might be able to.
your approach is sound. I would say that Councilman Byrne, this property that is proposed for development actually is kind of on the bottom end of two natural drainage channels. One's coming from, if I had a pointer, I could do a better job of it, but where you see South Post Road, you've got a drainage structure coming under Post Road there, I believe. And also to the north on Reno, Billy, if you'll take that up to there, yep. You've got another existing drainage structure that picks up drainage from the north of Reno. So this is an area that's already got a fair amount of water, and I think what he's referring to is probably when you see a lot of water coming at you, you're not seeing it from this to the south of you, you're seeing it from the north of you.
That's right.
Running from.
Off of Reno.
Off of Reno,
Yep,
yes,
yep.
sir. So, it's a little different situation, but.
When your house is flooded, I don't think you care where.
No, I get it. I'm just saying that I think their concern is whether this development is going to impede the water, the natural flow that's
That's
going
right.
through there.
That's right.
So that the water gets through there and doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not impeded and slows down.
So I have a couple of follow-up questions. So if I understand correctly, the only thing that we are looking at right now is changing the classification of this property for tonight, correct?
They're changing from multiple zonings to a PUD, which the site plan that they've submitted, the 8 lots, although it's not in stone, it will guide the development in the future as the decisions are made to go forward. So basically, you're giving the applicant the permission to move forward with the engineering and design under these guidelines of the PUD. With the presumption that
There's gonna be 8 lots on it,
yes.
based on the site plan?
So,
And now, you gentlemen are aware that there's a drainage issue with this property, correct? And so, this is something that happened for you from this evening. I mean, you're going in with the understanding that there's a problem with drainage out there.
Thank you.
thank you. And so, Billy, you already, you said you have an engineer that's gonna be looking at it also, and you pretty much have a.
Yes, we've been talking
Oh, okay.
with another engineer to bring on board.
Okay.
You'll see a contract come through, but Johnson and Associates is one of them that we've been talking with.
And based on that engineer's evaluation of property, it could create some more additional work on their part to mitigate any future flooding issues. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
True statement?
Do you all understand that? Okay.
Billy, what's, again, on that back lot, is there a minimum on the back lot line? What is that? On the back building line? 17-foot easement, you say? So they can put the house within 17 feet of the back property line.
Like I said, this is a learning experience, but if I understand what we're fixing to do, this is approved. We're going to pay an outside engineer to come in and give us basically a second opinion to say whether or not what they're saying, that it'll work.
Yes, Mr. Jackson will make a proposal on a development, and he'll work with Patrick on that proposal. They'll work through some issues, and then the outside engineer will be, you know, not involved in it, and he'll look at it to give us an outside opinion to make sure that everything is working as proposed, or maybe there's another solution out there.
At our expense.
Yes, sir.
And why is that? That's what I'm curious about.
Basically, because we've been put on notice that there's some drainage issues, and we want to make sure that we get it right.
Okay, so, and I'm gonna look at you, Councilman Moore, because you have the most experience, especially in this field. But we call it caveat emptor under law. Isn't it developer beware also? When you buy the property, you take it as it is, you're developing it, you're taking the circumstances on. Am I wrong on this?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I know exactly what you're trying to say, but he's licensed and they're supposed to be qualified and certified to make sure that they have the drainage correct. And our staff,
I'm trying to around why the city is going to hire.
well, and I'm getting there, and the staff should be able to do that, but maybe they're too busy and they just wanna hire an outside third source to double check everything and make certain that we're not in another in a bad drainage situation. But like Billy said, I've never heard of them hiring an outside I don't know if the third engineer that they bring on is gonna have any liability or skin in the game where, you know, or it's gonna be, well, I kinda gave you my opinion too, but no one can come back on me on anything. I'm not sure about that, but.
Well, we hire outside engineers quite often, and we hire outside attorneys to come in and give us another opinion on things that, because we don't necessarily have an expertise right in that area. And so we thought, being put on notice, because drainage is extremely complicated, or it can be. It looks real simple until it rains really heavy, and then it becomes complicated, and we want to make sure that we get this right. I don't know that as this all started, that really anyone knew that the water backed up that much on these properties. They're set back off the road, and I don't know that we've ever been put on notice that there was drainage issues out there on those two pieces of property. But we want to make sure that and get somebody that's with some outside eyes, take a fresh look at it and look at the overall development and the overall drainage pattern, and do the best that we can on it. Patrick is very capable of this, follows the ordinances, but at the same time, we would like to get somebody from the outside as another legal opinion on a complex subject.
So in other words, when you do this, it would also help the other property around, would it decrease the other property around these gentlemen that's talking about the drainage of this property? It probably could have a positive effect on their drainage also when that is done, to make sure, or what?
I don't know that it'll make the drainage out there better. I'll be honest with you, we don't really know the situation out there, and we're all concerned about it. But they're making an application to develop the property. They're making the application to develop it less dense than what the existing zoning is.
Okay.
And we've been put on notice that there may be some drainage issues, and we want to take those steps to get it as correctly as possible, as correct as possible.
Okay.
But if I remember too, this area used to be really low, and there's a lot of fill brought in, and it's got a lot of fill, concrete, and
Further to the east, that's correct. The backside, there's not a lot of field. But you have to
the further front half of it.
Yeah, yeah, right as you come closer to the post, there's field up on that
But it was
side.
always pretty low too, and they'll make sure that the house floor elevations are way outside of any potential flooding, not just neighbors, but yours also.
Correct.
Definitely. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is that correct? You know,
Yes,
you understand
yes.
how it's,
Yeah, I grew up, I mean, this is my city I grew up, I remember
Oh,
when they
okay.
put the field there. I mean, I used to ride the bus right there, so
well,
I remember it.
so, Billy, you pretty much, know what you have to do, and if it's approved, you all know what's going on, what you have to do. I say, since everyone has an idea of what they need to do, I make a motion to approve it, and everyone do what they need to do.
I just want to explain my vote. I'm still a little uncomfortable with it. I don't like as narrow the lots are, they're going to impede on the neighbors to the south. But I'm just more concerned about it. I'd like to have more information on it. So for now, I'll put in a no vote.
And let the engineer get to work a little bit more. Is that something that we can do?
We can do, anything.
Well, but is that something, I mean, is that
Well,
something that Billy and his group and you all are okay with? I mean, obviously we can take any action we want, but I don't think one that everybody's the most happy with. And there's a lot of discomfort in this vote, it seems like, around the horseshoe. And if we could take some of that away with a little bit more information, particularly about the drainage, I think, and it might give Councilman Moore some more time about the lot sizes that he's concerned about.
Well, we should be able to answer that right now. I just don't, I'll have to dig through the paperwork, or maybe Kelly knows the depth of the back lots. Do you know that?
But as to the other issues, if we didn't take action, that would give you guys time to get together and figure the drainage issue out better. Is that a correct statement or an incorrect statement?
It's a correct statement that, yes, we could figure it all out. It'll mean that the applicant has to put more money forward, and that we would have to hire somebody for something that may or may not pass. If everybody else is okay with that, if the applicant's okay with that.
Well, but we could very well, the same thing could very well happen. We could pass this through here and you bring it back like you said it has to. You guys spend all that money and we could vote it down anyway. So the same risk is there.
Once they have the zoning, and if they meet their minimum requirements of the subdivisions, we are required to act on that. And if they meet the requirements, then they should get approval.
Then I've got a little bit more heartburn with that at that point. I actually have a lot more heartburn at that, because you said it has to come back to us to vote, but you said if it meets all the minimum, then we would have to vote for it.
This is a zoning question that's before us now. Once it becomes a subdivision, a platting requirement, and how the utilities are actually installed, and once they meet the minimum requirements, then we are obligated to.
If I have to choose to vote, I'm going to vote no. I would much rather you guys figure out a way to get together and put forward the energy that needs to be put together so we could make a more informed vote.
So what is it that you actually need? Just the engineering to check it out? But then again, can it be fixed? I mean, if a drainage problem, surely a drainage engineers know how to, where our water is going for it to flow correctly, where it's not flooding. That's an engineer's.
We've got several projects where we didn't exactly take the best of long-term view, and we've got some runoff issues that we have now, like the gentleman back there said. This is an area that I've been aware of for a long time. It feeds off, I believe, into the Wonga area where, up there where there's been several homes and some pools and some garages, and I think your house might have gotten wet too, Guy.
Well, then why?
I would prefer to
Let me
hold
suggest
off.
this, Patrick. Can you come back in 30 days and give us a little bit better idea of what drainage issues that we're going to be looking at?
Well, I think the Horseshoe Council is pretty aware of the situation on the side. The question is, though, that this
So I probably heard you wrong, but basically we address this piece of property and this piece of property only, and whatever happens up or downstream could happen, and we don't have any control over it?
Without an effort to move forward with those property owners, getting access, doing studies and a design for that. I don't want to give the impression that if we work out a design for this, that there's not going to be an issue down on Trip 6 or up by Reno, because this is looking, excuse me, is looking at the water across the property. It won't, address the issues that come off of Reno.
Because the water that crosses the property now, because it's all grass, trees, and dirt, it absorbs a heck of a lot more water than what it will absorb when we have 8 house pads in a street. So we're only looking at how all that additional water is going to cross this property, but not really looking at what it's going to do downstream.
Well, that's part of the design criteria, is that they'll have to keep detention, we'll have to accommodate that water that's going to be sped up by having an impervious surface, with the road and the rooftops. There is going to be more water that's running on the surface, but what we'll have to do is build some type of structure at the end of that to slow that water back down, to make sure there's no increase in runoff from the property. I don't want it to give a false impression, though, that if there's somewhere several 100 feet south of this or north of this is having an issue, even a perfect design on this piece of property is not going to address those.
It won't address those issues, but I want to make sure it's not going to make those issues worse. I know that what's happening here isn't going to make we got to make sure that, I know that it won't fix those issues, but we have to make sure that it's not going to make those issues worse.
If that's the burden of the design, is that it can have a negative impact on any of the adjacent properties.
So I think, my opinion is we just need to give it another 30 days and take no action.
Well, my understanding, I want to understand this. As you said that regardless of this property being developed or not, this water that flows around their property is going to flow the way it flows regardless. This property is not going to have, with the development, is it going to have any burn on anybody else's property?
That's the intent of the design, the engineering design, put the features on there is to make sure that it doesn't have an impact on the properties that are adjacent.
Okay.
Okay,
The extent of the extent of their responsibility when they develop this.
It's their responsibility.
it has been suggested that we take no action
Could
on
I-
this particular item.
Could we say something, or could I say something?
Yes, sir.
We did meet with the property owner. They were at the planning commission. The property owner is due north, so I am aware of the drainage issue. One of the things that's crossing my mind one, we are supposed to go next month for the preliminary plat, presented to the planning commission, and that's at the time you guys would hear it again. At that time, I would hope that we have some plans to Patrick for him to review the address the zoning. I guess one issue, besides just tabling it, and I may be out of line here, is just to hear the zoning and the plat at the same council meeting, if that's possible. One of the other options, and I'm speaking for the developer owner here, we had originally had the lots to the north to get rid of what Councilman Moore is calling the spike strip. The owner decided he wanted to do it to the south, just in case in the future there ever was the possibility of acquiring the property to the north and including it in that. So that's why the lots are to the north, or to the south of the property. If that's not a possibility, or that causes heartburn, maybe flipping the houses back originally to the north might alleviate some of that and allow us to have detention between the subdivision to the south and allow us to detain more water that way. I am a little concerned with the amount of water coming down there, because I think to answer everybody's question, the first thing we're going to be obligated to do is not dam up the water. That's what the property owners to the north are concerned with. They don't want us to put a curb up there and then the water just stops and backs up on their property. So that's pretty easy to not do, dam up their water. The issue with that is, though, with the concrete, is not to make more water go on to the people to the south of us. And in order to do that, we're probably gonna need a bigger detention pond than we would regularly be required to build. I think with the way the property is laid, it might be better to do that along the south half of the property than the north half. But me and the property owner I don't want to obligate them to anything like that. But to address the concerns, one, our obligation is not to dam up the water to the north for the property owners to the north, so it'll back up and flood out their property. But also not to do anything to increase the water to go south of us. We know that's our obligation. It doesn't do us any good to design something and they're mad at us or sue us. I mean, nobody wins in that situation. So, you know, all I ask is before you take a vote, consider all those factors.
Mr. Mayor, and maybe it would be appropriate for Mr. Jackson to make a proposal on the drainage, and Patrick have a chance to look at it and get with the Alcott site consultant and make sure this is addressed in the next 30 days and come back with something, because I think
what
everyone's,
would suggest
I
that
couldn't
we-
agree more that everyone's nervous about this. We want to get it right.
That's what I would suggest, that we table this for 30 days. We allow you to start getting your design team together. We consult with an outside engineer. You work with Mr. Menifee and start addressing some of the concerns that have been addressed tonight, and then come back in 30 days and maybe we can and get everything worked out.
I mean,
Is that fair enough?
the only concern I guess the owner or the developer would have is, and I think somebody alluded to it, that he would have to engage me to start a process that
Yes, sir.
may not get approved.
But I think if he was to ask us to vote tonight, there's a very good chance this wouldn't get approved.
I think if you can address the concerns that have been stressed by around the horseshoe, I think you'll and we get a nod from our city engineer, and we get a nod from the outside consultant. I think you'll be okay. We just want to make sure that we don't flood out the folks to the north and create some issues, and even create issues for you, as you alluded to. You get everybody mad at you and get sued, and then everybody the whole thing has a tendency to go south. So it would be my suggestion as chair that we table this issue for 30 days and you start addressing some of those issues. Chair would entertain a motion to table.
Not a table.
Take no action,
No.
I'm sorry.
So Billy, why is it that we
No,
have to pay for the outside consultant?
Okay, we're just not gonna take any action today, and we're
Why is
gonna.
it that we pay for the
tonight.
outside
It'd be the
consultant?
24th.
Because we're covering our butts, is that what we're doing?
I think if we can get some information about the drainage, Billy, are you gonna be working with them about who they
Yes.
need, okay,
Yes.
and come back to
That
us?
would be Melissa Patrick, yes.
Okay, all right.
I would say, if that's your desire, I would say not 30 days, but move it to the 24th of October. This is a public hearing for this particular zoning, so I think it really needs to come back in the format as it's presented. Now, they may choose to adjust their PUD, their design statement, which is fine, but the actual zoning case for the PUD, that it's been publicly noticed that way, so I think it needs to come
Well, but
back.
He said there's a chance they might switch from the house to be on the south to the north, so if
Well,
we table it,
we-
it's come back to us exactly like it is.
Well, which is, no, the case has to come back as it is, as it has been advertised. The PUD itself can be modified. The design statement, the site plan, all of that can be
So you
modified.
suggest we table it instead of take no action?
That's correct. And I would say the 24th. Is it, the preliminary plat gonna be, is it, I'm sorry?
We can't hear the preliminary plat until we have zoning in place. so
Okay.
It,
His
Okay.
question was, can you do them both at the same night?
we cannot.
Okay. I make a motion to table till the 24th.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? The gentleman in back that lives to the north, do you have any further discussion on this particular item before we close it out?
I would just say that the water that runs across that property, off of mine, it's a straight shot. But the property to the south of me, it flares out. And as it flares out, it takes in the gentleman's home. And so my concern would be that they would, try to make that some type of direct flow instead of a branch that flows through there. That
Patrick,
would
do
be
you have a
my
business
only
card you can give to
recommendation.
him? Okay.
This gentleman right here needs your information. Needs to be able to
Great.
we are not gonna know how that water flows unless we go out there and sit and wait.
That's right. And I would invite, I know we're not gonna, we are having a big rain right now, and it's supposed to rain all night long. And you would probably be, it would help you to look at the property to the south of me to see how that water is just spread out all over and not very far from that man's front door. It runs through my property pretty good, and my concern is just that it would be slowed down. Or like you said, you're not gonna do this dam, which, he couldn't do that. But I mean, that would be my concern. All right, great. Thank you, sir. Okay, great.
Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Craig Dawkins, Hunter's Glen 2. I was trying to see exactly where that was, and I was having trouble seeing, but it just dawned on me that that's north of my property and north of our additions, the Hunter's Glen and Hunter's Glen 2. So I've lived there since 1994, so for 23 years. And the water back there is like rapids behind our house now. So, I know there's a lot of erosion, and I know there's been a lot of things done to mitigate that. There's the cement drain that's there ends, and then I guess there's right of way that the water drains to a pond. Is that right? And then it drains into Soldier Creek. Is that how that works?
That's correct. It makes it south. There's some structures that were put in with it.
And part of the problem is, I think, when they built our addition, is the water wants to run south, but they make it run north so that it can drain and then run back south. And so that's how it was built. And it has gotten better since they raised the driveways on Post. It was horrible during that period of time. It rained hard the other day. We're still getting lots of water, but mostly I would be concerned with what's happening behind the property, because it's rapids. I mean, child gets in there, they're done for. So, anyway.
And so is that behind?
It's behind my property.
Where are they going, looking at?
Well, it's to the north, so that water's all gonna run south. I would guess it would. And I would guess they would dump it in that cement drainage.
Okay.
I don't know where that water's going now. That water's draining currently somewhere. I don't know if it's staying on the street and draining on the street, or or how much of it is draining back behind that property now. But if there's more water added back there, that could be a real problem. So,
Thank you, Mr. Dawkins. Is there any further discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
Discussion, consideration of changing the official Midwest City flag.
We have we'll be reaching out to the two high schools here in Midwest City to have a contest to redesign the city flag. You've had the information in front of you. And they'll be coming, once the contest is over, they'll be coming back to council, and we'll be picking the new city flag.
I have one question, and I really didn't have it till earlier when we were discussing it pre-council on the time frame. That if we approve this, this is gonna happen fairly quickly, right?
The art teachers will have the packets in their hands Wednesday.
Okay. I don't know how to say this, it's gonna sound kinda, it's not gonna sound good, but, do we have the money to fund this if it's approved? And
Well, there's no really funding to it unless we start buying flags.
Well, that's what,
But if we adopt the
And,
flag, we have to buy the flags.
Do what?
If we adopt the flag, we don't have a choice but to buy the flag.
We can
change everything on our police uniforms, our fire uniforms, and most of our.
That's not the purpose of this. The city seal will remain the seal on the police uniforms, on the fire uniforms. This is just a ceremonial flag that the kids will have a chance to help design. And until we start buying flags, or if we do adopt, and there's nothing that says we have to adopt any
well,
of the
I'm
designs.
assuming if we're gonna go through this exercise, there's a strong possibility that we are going to adopt it, and please hear me out. And I didn't realize this till recently, that the seal is actually part of the flag. And I just wanna make sure, because we're going out to the citizens and asking for money, and I just wanna make sure that we have the funds available to fund this, especially if it's gonna be done as quickly as we were told earlier, because I'm not clear on the fact, I may have assumed wrong, that if we change the seal on the flag, are we gonna change the seal for everything else in the city? Or is this
No,
just?
that's not the intent.
You're saying we're not changing the seal, we're just gonna maybe change the flag. If we change the flag, what we would have to do is.
Buy a flag.
Buy flags. How
Okay.
many flags do we have in the city?
Well, we got one that flies out front every day. And again, wouldn't have to move forward with buying flags until we had the money. Obviously, that'd be imprudent on everybody's part to do that.
But if we adopt it, we would need to then buy it.
Well, eventually, we would have to. There's nothing that says, and anything that I wanted to do, we have to jump off this cliff right away.
Well, I don't think we're jumping off the cliff. I just want to, because I didn't understand, and I may have been the only one up here that didn't understand it. And I may falsely assume the fact that if we change the seal or change the flag, we were going to change the seal. And if we change
Absolutely
the
not.
seal, that means all the uniforms, all the decals, all the
Absolutely.
stationery.
I thought all the
Absolutely
uniforms
not.
had this flag on it, so because it is the seal.
Yeah, it's the
I-
seal. In
Absolutely
fact,
not.
if you look at the examples of what's a good flag and a bad flag, that would be considered a bad
Bad
flag,
flag.
because there's too much, it's too
But
busy.
no, we would not do that.
Okay.
Well, could you
So-
state its purpose, and just so, what if a few groups say, well, you did this, I think we should, where do you kind of kill it now, to where you state more of your plan?
Run that by me one more time.
Well, I mean, there may be other people, and it makes sense what he's saying, but the intent of your flag idea, this is the intent and spirit of the idea, not to replace everything and just add
Sure.
that to any wording,
But would it-
until
but would
there
it-
is a time.
Until there is a time, or we have the money. I mean, obviously, we can't step out and start changing patches and doing all that, and that would be imprudent on everybody's part to even attempt that.
Well,
This
how would it coordinate with what we have then?
I'm sorry, no?
And how would it coordinate
It
with?
doesn't have to.
With the seal?
That's the whole purpose of having these kids design
You've got
one.
a city seal,
Okay.
okay, that represents what our city stands for, and then you got a ceremonial flag that would fly out front, and the two don't even have to commingle.
I think maybe we're splitting hairs here, but the word official in front of Midwest City flag in agenda item 9, if we might just alter that to 75th anniversary edition Midwest City flag or ceremony
Well,
flag.
if we do
it would-
adopt the flag, I mean, it would be the official flag of Midwest City.
But if we don't adopt the flag,
Then it's not the official
then
flag.
we
of
shouldn't
Midwest
put the official on there, on this. I have to agree with Susan, she's not splitting
City.
hairs.
What?
I'm agreeing with Susan. when you're putting this out that this is gonna be the official flag, and somebody wins, they think this will be the official flag. First place means they win. That first place means they are the official flag. If we take official off of it and put flag competition maybe to be adopted later, the first place winner doesn't go home and tell their parents, look, I won, I have the official flag, and then we say later, no, it's just cute, but it's not really official.
Maybe we need to reword it.
I did not follow it.
And you know what, and we wonder why, like, federal government doesn't work. This
Yeah,
is just
you're
a,
looking at an example.
it's a flag.
I think I take offense
No,
to
you-
that
you-
because
you do make- you do
I'm
make
actually,
good
because
points.
it wasn't clear to me, like I said, I assumed, maybe falsely, that when I looked at the seal and realized, and how I realized it was because all the paperwork we get, it's got that on it. And if we're gonna change that, are we gonna change the seal too?
Absolutely not.
And that was, I think that's, maybe it may
Absolutely
be slowing things down, but I think it's a legitimate question. Right now, we're asking, are we gonna spend money on something we really don't need? And I personally do not have a problem with changing the flag if that's all it is. I just didn't want us to vote on something and not be able to fund it because we're asking people for a sales tax.
We have several flags over the city and at the Reed Center that you would need to replace if you did this.
There is a disclaimer in here that says the council reserves the right to make any and all changes to the official flag of
Absolutely.
Midwest City. So there is a disclaimer at the bottom of this, even though it does says this is for the official flag, this really isn't for the official flag if we don't like it. So it could be not official.
We could have 15 different designs in front of us. If you guys don't like any of them, we don't have to do anything. And if we do adopt it, we don't have to implement it immediately. It could be something that could be done. And we're not, obviously, again, not gonna go change patches and everything else throughout the city.
I'm gonna move that we go forward with the art contest for students to design a Midwest City flag, and we're gonna figure out how we're gonna put it up
Again,
later.
it's all in-
It's-
it's
we're-
all
we're
in the
just-
resolution.
We're just, we're
The
figuring out where
disclaimer's
we're gonna
already
put
there.
it.
And
We're going forward with
And in
that.
order to expedite government, that we're not slow, I'm gonna second it, if that's okay with you.
That's a great man right there. I'll even donate the first $100 bill if we get a new flag, because I know they're pretty high dollar.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any further discussion on the flag? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Hallelujah.
You got something done.
Ladies and gentlemen, we move into the,
No,
no,
not
we
yet.
have one more. We have updates. We
So
have
this
updates.
is discussion consideration of quarterly updates from the police and fire department regarding the status of implementation of the police and the fire reports. You have the quarterly reports from both chiefs on the work that has been progressing with the implementation of the studies. I know they're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone on the Horseshoe have any questions for either chief in regards to the progress of the studies?
Move to approve the quarterly report.
I do have a absent member on the Horseshoe. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Motion carries. And ladies and gentlemen, we move into the public discussion, new business of our agenda. Does anyone have anything to bring before the Midwest City Council? Hearing none, we do have an executive session.
And I'm advised by the city attorney that that is not required.
Hearing no further discussion, we are hereby adjourned. There are 2 articles of further information. Any action needed on that?
No, sir.
We're hereby adjourned. Now call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda of the trustees. by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item does not meet with the approval of all trustees or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve the consent
Second.
agenda.
With pulling
With the
item 3.
exception of, number 3.
No.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of
Second.
item number 3. And I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. On item number 3, discussion and consideration of accepting the Midwest City Soccer Club 2016-2017 financial statement.
I think it's the intent to not take action on this item, and it will
Correct.
come back to you later.
Okay, take no action on that item. We now move into the new business public discussion on this agenda. Anyone have any business with the Midwest City Municipal Authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. We now call to order the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda, so the trustees of the hospital authority, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of all trustees or members of the audience wishing to discuss an item, be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Discussion item number 1.
This is discussion consideration of a report provided by Alliance Health regarding the improvement progress. In October 2016, the Hospital Authority entered into a second amendment to the lease of Midwest Regional Medical Center and its successor in interest, Health Management Associates and Community Health Systems, Inc., following the settlement of the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority versus Health Management Associates, Inc. et al., case number CJ 2014-667. The settlement agreement in the modified Section 511 CMS Ratings Section D provides that each year lessee will provide a written report to lessor on progress for each category with a goal of improvement in each category, and the hospital CEO will present such report in person at a meeting of lessor's board no later than September 30th of each year. For any categories that are at below, lessee will present a specific detailed plan for improvement of the score to the lessor. Therefore, per the settlement, Alliance Health CEO Clay Franklin will be in the audience, and he is, to present the progress report and specific details for improvement.
Mr. Franklin, thanks for being here. Could you state your name and address for us, please?
My name is Clay Franklin. My address is, I just moved from rental house there. I think it's 11401 North Bryan, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. But I apologize. I should know my address, but I've been there about 2 weeks now from a rental place. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Henson, City Council members. My name's Clay Franklin, and my wife and I had the opportunity to return to Oklahoma. And Commissioner moved out 17 years ago, thought it'd be 2 years, and we have about 60 family members in Oklahoma City metro area, so we're thrilled to be back, and appreciate you extending your evening for me to provide this update. I am the CEO of Alliance Health Midwest. I'm also the market CEO over that the other 7 Alliance Health hospitals in Oklahoma report to. And in the presentation that we provided, the written report, I'm going to walk through the star rating and provide that information, and I believe it's being pulled up right now. So while it's being pulled up, the star rating is instituted by CMS. CMS is a Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It's a department of the Health and Human Services, a federal department that oversees just a variety of insurance programs, Medicaid, and our Children's Health Insurance Plan, amongst other items. The CMS rating itself, or the star rating, really what this is CMS has gone out and grabbed publicly reported available data, and it summarizes it together into a fairly simple 5-star rating to help the consumers, to educate them on what, how our hospitals, compare the hospitals, provide information to the patients and families that may relate to quality. There's a point in time I will pause if we can have the slides up later that'll be probably a bit more meaningful to the council. The CMS first. Oh, do you have it? Great. So if you have it, I'm going to go to slide 5. The CMS, so they first published the 5-star in July 2016. And what we're going to walk through right now is what constitutes a 5-star. How do you get that 5-star rating? So on slide 5, it breaks down the different categories. One is mortality, and it is a 22% of all of your stars. The next item is safety. It's hospital-acquired infections, hip and knee complications, but really it's hospital-acquired infections and that PSI 90. In healthcare, we love to use initials and a different language. What that is called hospital-acquired conditions, or what I will term as a never event that happens in a hospital, that should never happen in a hospital. And that is 22% of the total weighting. The next one is readmissions. So these are patients that are readmitted back into a hospital, back into any hospital, within 30 days of discharge for a wide variety of different admission diagnosis. The next item, which is the last biggest bucket, is patient experience, and it's under HCAHPS, and it's what is the satisfaction, the experience of patients that are coming to the hospital. So those 4 buckets are 88% of our total star rating. The other 3 items, effectiveness of care, that's really our core measures. It measures processes more so than outcomes. If a patient comes in for a hospital, did we provide immunization? If we did not, did we document the reasons why? That's an example of what effectiveness of care is. Timeliness of care is how efficient and expedient our emergency department is. And then the last one is efficient use of medical imaging. And that is really looking at, are we ordering tests for the same patient with or without contrast? And contrast is just a injectable dye that helps you see the imaging scan, and patients typically are ordered either with it or without it, and don't go through both of those because it is to provide that optimal care. Now I'm on slide 6. Okay. There we go. So what you're going to see are the results. These results are not publicly available yet. These results are going to be publicly available next month in October. We've received the results, so that's what you're looking at is our results that'll be reported next month. And I'm going to walk through the
You realize this is public, and this is on TV, so now this is public.
It is publicly reported here today, Midwest City, yes. The federal government's not going to report it, put it that way, until next month. To walk through the first one is the domains. These are the categories that I mentioned that had the weighting next to it. So mortality at 22%. If you go to the next column where it says same, that is comparing the hospital to the national average. Are we at the national average or not, and how well are we doing? So the hospital, Alliance Health Midwest, is at the national average when it comes to mortality. I want to point to the time period on the right. This is taking data that started over 4 years ago and ended over a year ago. So it's taking historical data, and it will always take historical data as it moves forward. So it'll always be a year behind. Whether we look phenomenal, whether we not look well, it takes time for that data to catch up. The next item is readmissions, 22% of the weight. The prior reporting period, we were at the national average, and really the hospital has done very well on readmissions, but has dropped below the national average for this reporting period that'll come out in October. Again, a little bit of a historical data on this, but what our current data indicates, and looking at the reason why we're having readmissions, it's multiple reasons, and what we are doing about it is, number one, it's most patients get readmitted because of medication.
either get confused on the medication or they don't take the medication they need. And the national studies will show us about 85% of all readmissions is due to medication management. Some patients walk in and they're used to taking all these different medications. They leave and they need to take a different set of medications. So what we're providing is our pharmacy and our pharmacists rounding on patients to help with our medication education, but also what we're doing to make sure patients get their medication, that we are doing a auto transmit system for their prescriptions. So it'll be ready at the pharmacy, so when they leave the hospital, they can swing right by the pharmacy and get it, because we're noticing with patients readmitted, they're going home, not getting that prescription filled right away, and that medication management is crucial. The second thing we're doing is our case managers are scheduling the post-discharge visits with the primary care physicians. So we're doing that before they leave the hospital, so they know your doctors are waiting for you next Tuesday, next Thursday. And doing that to frankly have a little more not that accountability, but put that process in place instead of a patient going home and then at some time calling the physician, and sometimes it's not until they feel, pretty bad, and you got to hurry up and see a physician. This third thing we're doing, so the medication at the pharmacy, we're scheduling the primary care physician appointments, is we are right now looking at the data for the institutional readmissions for patients that leave our hospital. And all hospitals, a large percent of them go to nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities, or long-term acute care centers. And we're looking at those at what nursing home or what post-acute services I mentioned are we receiving the readmissions, and are some higher than others? So we can engage these long-term acute care providers, their medical directors, with our chief medical officer, and have that clinical discussion. Or is there education, or what can we do to help with the readmissions in those facilities? The next item that we are below is safety of care. And it's 22% of the weight. This is a big weight. When we got the updated scores in October, and we remained at a 2 stars, we really thought it was going to pop up to that 3 stars, because there are various improvements under this category that's not reflected in the data, because the data is a bit dated compared to our improvement. There's 3 areas that are driving the safety of care. One is MRSA, MRSA. It is it's a bacteria that is resistant to antibiotics. It's not a good thing to have. And we have reduced and improved our MRSA rate and decreased that by 83% from 2015 to 2016. Much of that improvement is not reflected in this data. The second area that's really driving under safety of care is something called CLABSI, C-L-A-B-S-I. These are central line bloodstream infections, so infections that patients would get from a central line being placed in that patient. And we have seen a 57% improvement in our CLABSI rates from 2015 to 2016. And both of these items, we have maintained that improvement as we go to 2017. The third item is C. diff. C. diff is a bacteria, highly contagious. Patients will either have it when they walk in the hospital, or they could get it in the hospital. And it's just highly contagious. And hand washing is the primary focus to make sure that you don't spread it from one patient to another patient by caregivers or family members. And we have seen a decrease or an improvement of 52% improvement from 2015 to 2016, and we've maintained that improvement throughout 2017. So when our safety of care, we look forward to the future publicly reported data, and we anticipate to see that go up. The next item is the one that I'm passionate about all of them. This one is a big focus area, and I think the patients have been coming to our hospital recently have recognized that. Patient experience, and we are below the national average. The data goes to third quarter 2016, but when we're looking at our current data that we look at right now, the quarter we're in right now, the third quarter 17, is the highest patient experience scores we've seen in the last 6 quarters. This is really going to touch on culture, and we have fantastic employees at the hospital that they're doing the right thing, and they're providing great care. What we are providing is exceptional leadership and a lot of support to find out what do they need to provide better care. I'm going to walk through and speak to some other slides we'll skip through later. But we are doing a lot of things at the hospital. For example, every patient in our hospital is rounded by a nurse leader of that unit. Every patient, every day. We've instituted safety rounds and patient experience rounds with our nurse leadership that happens at 7:30 in the morning, it happens at 3:30 in the afternoon. Every leader in our hospital, from a department leader up to myself, from 10 o'clock to noon every day, we have a no meeting zone. And that is a time we get out of our offices, we go around on staff, we go around on our employees, as also we go around on patients. And just yesterday, we randomly walk in rooms, and I walk in a patient who was transferred to us from Seminole, checking on their care. And when we leave the room, they're receiving our cell phone numbers. If they have issues, they can call me. They can call my chief nursing officer, my chief operating officer, Dr. Talley, who most of you know. And part of that is, it's multifaceted. Number one, this is how important that is to us. And number two, our employees they got to buy in. This is real important to us. So that is the areas that we're doing. And we're doing a lot more that we'll go through a different slide, but this is, patient experience goes back to culture. And what I want every employee in that hospital to know, and I'll put those employees against any other hospital, that we're there to make sure they have the appropriate resources and the appropriate focus, and as a CEO, to remove barriers to what they're doing. The last three items, use of medical imaging, and we're pretty confident of our tactics to improve that. Again, this is a physician that may write an order with and without contrast. So we have identified those physicians, and we're engaging them with our chief medical officer to provide just the necessary education to order it either one way or the other. And mostly this is has to do with CT scans. The next one, timeliness of care, that's our emergency department. We're at the same. And the effectiveness of care, that's, did we document things we should have documented at the same as well. So how do we improve it? I kind of spoke through these. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these slides. It's culture and leadership. And as Michelle Bradshaw is our director of quality, I apologize not introducing her next to me. I'm not used to speaking from a city council. It's the first item on our executive team agenda. When we meet with employees, clinical excellence. What is our mortality index? What is our complication index? Is the first things we lead with. Our hospital, when it comes to PCI mortality, and this is for patients that need emergency heart procedures and they get that cath to revascularize the vessel, to get blood flowing, the acuity of our patient is higher than multiple facilities around us, so they're sicker. When you look at the data of patients that are expected to die versus how are we doing, when it comes to our cardiology program, our mortality index is significantly below 1. What that means is if you're at 1, you're doing what's expected. You're below 1 on a mortality index. That means patients that are expected to die are living when they come to our hospital, when they come in for a heart attack. And we're having to revascularize the heart and the vessels. When we look at our complication index overall for our hospital, and we look at the current data we have for the last 3 quarters, our complication index is below 1. So we have patients that are expected to have complications or expected to have harm, but they're not having that because they come into our hospital, Alliance Health Midwest. For me to stand in front of our employees and be able to say that, and inject that pride. There's some phenomenal things that are happening at our hospital, and a lot of really high acuity services by some great providers. So, but it comes back to that culture and speaking about it, having that engagement of our staff. If I go to slide 9, I'm not going to go through all these, but there's a heck of a lot that we're doing to have that engagement with our staff, that engagement with our employees. Once a month, a member of the executive team was going to work in a department and kind of walk a mile in their shoes. I received a telephone call yesterday from a housekeeper that I wrote a thank you note to. First time in my career, and I've wrote plenty of thank you notes. She called me to thank me for the thank you note, and then she saw me rounding last night after a board meeting, and she came up and gave me a hug, and she did some exceptional things for patients, went above and beyond, and we need to, and we are reinforcing that kind of behavior and that kind of attitude, that kind of engagement. So what we're hearing from patients is, I ran it on one patient, and I really thought about bringing him here to speak to the council tonight. I went in his room. His wife was the patient. She's a quadriplegic. was at our hospital many years ago, and had sworn he would never, ever come back to that hospital. And so I was going to take a chair. I thought our patient visit was going to last a while. He had 4 pages, single-line notes in a spiral notebook. So he had documented everything. And he raved about the care that he received. The emergency department, the way we explained the procedures, the care that people received from our ICU to the 7th floor. He was absolutely just taken aback by the care. And so I'm telling him, hey, I need your help evangelize that message, because we're doing some great stuff, and I have numerous examples of that. If a patient just yesterday showed up with flowers from one of our ER nurses just to thank her, you know, not only just helped save a life, but really made that connection and calm that anxiety. Phenomenal employees, and as a leadership team, we need to be there with them, side by side with them, and leading, you know, next to them, not in front of them and not behind them. So that's the culture and the leadership that's provided at the hospital. And honestly, it's going to take a bit of time to catch up with the data. Culture takes time to change, and I've been there now for 90 days, and about 90 days today is my 90-day anniversary. And this is something we started hitting the ground on day 1. And this, to me, this is our mission critical item. We have great physicians. On slide 10, we have physician-led committees for our quality reporting committee. It goes directly to our medical executive committee, that goes to our board of trustees, transparent in all the data that we present. Slide 11 is just the area that we're below on the patient safety. These are the accomplishments that we have achieved that are not reflected in that reporting data because of the drag of the time. And the future, there's been a lot of discussion about CMS 5-star rating. It's here to stay. Items that hospitals are excelling at, CMS will remove. They'll add items that we need to improve upon that's appropriate. And really, I think it's a accurate trajectory of goals for all hospitals to achieve. And it's really not about the stars. When I speak to the employees, we're not speaking about stars. We're speaking about saving lives of patients expected to die, preventing complications to patients expected to have them. And our patients, it's not patient experience, but creating these raving fans, like that gentleman I mentioned, to go out and brag about the care at the hospital. And for our employees, it's having the employees, having that employer choice, you know, that they'll choose us. It's small medical community to help re-recruit some great employees and maybe some ones that even left. That's the message that we're giving to our hospital. It's all about that culture. And I'm here to answer any questions, Mayor. Hopefully I didn't go over on time, but some that know me, I have a passion about this, can speak about it for a while.
Hey, I'll say something about being on the board over there. Clay is an incredible fit for our hospital. I mean, as he talks about culture, what our new, is it CFO?
CFO.
And he was talking last night how what you visited for hours and didn't even talk about money and things like that. It was just, yeah, you made me feel good, because when I used to hire teachers, when I was a principal, I never asked them how to teach reading or writing. I talked to them, and I could pick up the vibes on what they could do. And I think the culture at the hospital is changing. And as you all know, when somebody, if you've got kind of a reputation that's not really good, it's really hard to convince it, because it's hard to convince somebody when something has changed, because they still heard their neighbor's best friend who lives down the street who knew somebody who once upon a time went and had a problem. But the culture at the hospital is incredible. And on this 5-star rating, you impressed me last night when you said,
thank you.
I don't want to have a 3-star rating. I want to have a 4-star rating. I want to be above what everybody else does. And that, I think that's the attitude. The attitude I've seen at the hospital, and I've learned a lot. Do you realize, you could walk in the hospital right now and go in because you've got a little problem and just fall down, and it's the hospital's fault. I mean, I'm amazed at the things that count against them. But I'm impressed with what's going on over there. I really am.
Well, thank you, Mr. Dawkins. It's going to take time. I have a great executive team, and what he's speaking about is fit. So when we interviewed a CFO, it's all about fit. Are you going to fit the culture? And I have to have everybody rowing in the same direction to do that. So, I flew him back in just to, on a weekend to spend just, a lot of time with him. I have to get to know him, and Jermaine will do phenomenal. My chief nursing officer, Johnny Tiller, she was the CNO at Baptist Integris for a number of years. She lived right down the road the entire time and drove by the hospital, and she did some consulting work, and the job opened up, and so she jumped at it. She's a phenomenal fit for our nurses, and she is in the hospital constantly. But I rounded with her last night with the nurses, and she has that connection. You can tell, you know your employees or not. She knows them, and she's there with them. Typically, it takes culture a bit of time to turn around, but the employees that I've met some of the nicest, most engaged people. We got to make sure they know that we're there with them, we're resourcing them, so we're rounding on them. Do you have the equipment supplies to your job? Is everything working? What do you need from us? And, honestly, it takes a bit of time for people to open up and say, well, here's some more than others. And we're starting some focus group meetings with our employees as well. That'll be led by the senior leadership member over that department, to make sure we're hearing their voice and we're following up as a result of that. So there's a laundry list of tactics we're doing right now to make sure we have a better culture. But knowing this community, it won't take long for people to realize the great things are happening. Likewise, if we don't do it, it won't take long to realize it's not happening. And the way to change that, and you're right, it does take time to change it, but it's every patient, every time, every day that walks in that door. And there's some other things we're doing at the hospital just that we're looking at to help inject a lot of employee pride. But the patient experience is paramount to everything we do.
Well, and I have a different experience, and I would appreciate it if you have a few minutes, and if we're going to finish up here tonight, because also I've had personal experiences at the hospital. I have a professional situation that within the last 45 days, I've been very disappointed to see that I've not been able to get Alliance to give me a response on for a matter that goes to hearing tomorrow morning. And so nothing has been changing, my opinion. I've raised my issues to Mr. Dawkins and to the mayor before, since they sit on that committee. I certainly appreciate, because I work for the Healthcare Authority as an attorney, the importance of the CMS reviews and your ability to stay a contracted provider for Medicare and Medicaid. So if you have a few minutes, or if I can get a business card from you, because there are some issues that
I'd love to
I'd like to
speak
talk
to
to
you
you
about
about.
them. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
ma'am.
I will say that I've known pretty much most of the CEOs for the last 20 years at the hospital. And I'll be perfectly honest, I was quite dubious of us actually signing that contract with them last year. I thought that the ship had sailed and we should go and look at other things. I have been in a couple of meetings with Clay. Clay doesn't seem to give lip service like some of the others did. He does do a very good job. I impressed the heck out of him. 45 days between meetings on pretty much the same thing. And he came in and he said, okay, we talked about this, and this last time. He was engaged. He listened more than he talked. And when we came back for the second one, he had answers to the questions that we had, and he had some solutions. And it's still an ongoing process. But I will just say that I've been very impressed with him. Talked to several city employees that have actually dealt with a lot of the CEOs in the past also. And they see a complete turnaround from what it has been in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Oh, please call me Sean. Mister's my dad.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Any questions for me right now? We're not there, it's a journey to get there, but I appreciate the support. I appreciate the positive relationship and frankly, the opportunity and people saying we want to have a great relationship with the hospital, because that's what I want to have as well. I worked for a healthcare company for the past 17 years. And so leaving and coming back to Oklahoma, I didn't do it lightly. And I knew what I was walking into. For me, it's a personal challenge. It's something that I want to hit the top of that mountain. And frankly, we have the employees to do that. I just need to be there for them to do it. But I make myself available to anybody at any time, and I'll connect with you afterwards, ma'am.
Any further discussion?
I would say maybe take a motion to accept the report.
Move to accept the report.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Franklin, thank you for being
Thank
here
you,
and
Mayor.
taking your time. Thank you for coming as well, and we appreciate it. We look forward to future reports. Have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries to accept the report. Discussion item number 2.
This is discussion consideration of approving the Second Amendment to the Sooner Rose Phase 2 to Theater Development Financing Assistance Agreement with Midwest City Warren Theater, Inc. Robert?
You all may remember approving the First Amendment probably a little bit over a month ago. This Second Amendment just extends the closing date for the Warren Theater, and from Midwest City to Warren Theater, all of the property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Buena Vista Avenue and Southeast 15th Street. They were a little late getting some of their plans produced, and they're just now going out to get quotes from contractors. And we need this additional time because we've got a pipeline to move that we finally got an agreement on that should be done in the next few weeks. Plus, we have a few environmental concerns regarding the gas station there that used to be at the same corner. So it's going to be beneficial to both of us to extend this closing to honor before November 1st of 2017. Are there any questions?
Is this gonna affect the completion time on the overall project?
They don't think it will, and hopefully we can get the closure certificate on the fuel storage tanks that were at the gas station and have those out of the way as quickly as possible. In your consent agenda, we had a couple items related to that operation, and we're hopeful that that can be resolved before November. If they're not, you may see a third amendment to close on everything except for Lot 2 of what will eventually be the Warren plat, which is the very corner of that intersection.
Troubles, we're waiting on DEQ to give a certification on it, correct?
SCS Engineering will take the samples and everything and present them to DEQ along with our application to be a part of the indemnity fund, and we expect action after that.
I make a motion to accept.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item
Thank you all.
is discussion, consideration of action to relocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy guidelines and objectives.
No action is necessary on this.
No action is necessary. Move into the new business public discussion. Any public discussion bring before the authority? Hearing none, we do have an executive session.
This would be discussion consideration of one entering into executive session as allowed under 25 OS Section 307C10 to confer on matters pertaining to economic development, including the transfer of property, financing, or the creation of a proposal to entice a business to remain or to locate within the city.
Move to motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion, I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're now in executive session. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen.